Hello and welcome to Dr. Jam's Jam. Today I'm in Burnaby in the province of beautiful British Columbia, Canada. I'm here to visit a great Canadian success story. Although a lot of the facilities that we visit in Dr. Jam's Jam are in Europe, this one is born and bred in Canada and is a great example of how universities across North America can decarbonize. I hope you'll join me. I'm standing on the banks of the Fraser River, which has played an important role in the history of British Columbia, and more importantly, Canada, as a transport corridor. First Nations have called this area home for thousands of years. But over the past 200 years, the rapid economic development of British Columbia can be strongly attributed to one primary industry: forestry. British Columbia has been the largest producer of forest products in Canada for over 100 years. These products, namely lumber and board for housing, and pulp for paper and other bioproducts, have been the mainstay of British Columbia's economy. The importance of the forest industry to British Columbia, especially rural communities, continues. There's no better evidence of this than the log booms on the shores of the Fraser. But 200 years ago, this was largely seen as an economic resource, whereas today we recognize the environmental, social, and spiritual values of the forest. Recognizing this value doesn't mean walking away from forestry, not at all, but it does mean making the best use of the resource, particularly when it comes to climate. That's what Corix Utilities aims to do with its biomass plant at Simon Fraser University, which is why I'm here in Burnaby. But before I head to campus, I'm supposed to meet up with Robbie Gill at Cloverdale Fuels to find out where all the fuel for the plant comes from. Let's go check it out. Hi there, you must be Robbie.
I am.
Pleased to meet you.
Pleased to meet you as well. Welcome to Cloverdale Fuel.
Thank you so much. Maybe you can tell me a little bit about your operation here.
We've been in business since 1945. Grandpa started the business all those years ago. Primarily collect, receive, sort, and recycle wood waste into usable products.
So what are the types of products that you produce here?
We produce wood chips, landscaping mulch. We make biofuel for district energy systems.
And where does all this wood waste come from?
Everywhere. It'll come from a guy taking down a fence in his backyard, to a warehouse that's getting rid of pallets. We take any type of wood waste and make it into something else here. We try to reuse everything. Nothing here gets landfilled. And
so the alternative to what you're doing here would be to put it in landfill?
Or burn it. Back then they had something called beehive burners that were at every mill. So even Lower Mainland, there was a bunch of burners that you would take your sawdust and wood and all your waste that wasn't lumber or plywood, and you would burn it and just vent it, which really just created pollution and a little bit of heat nearby, but nothing else.
So why is all this residue created from the mills?
When the mills break down a log, the log is round obviously, and they make square blocks out of it, which are boards or cans. So that means the log has to be debarked, which means they take the bark off of it. They have to saw it, which creates sawdust, and they have to either chip it or saw off the solid pieces, which make it square. And that's where all the waste comes from in that case.
So you actually can't avoid producing this material?
No. Waste exists whenever you're making something. It's just the fact of life. Now what you do with that waste is another thing, right? So hopefully you can repurpose it to something else.
And if you didn't exist, I guess all this material would go to landfill.
Unfortunately, there still is a lot that gets mixed in with the garbage and goes to the landfill.
And I guess that results in a lot of methane production.
Exactly, yes. So wood waste in a landfill is not good because it does create methane.
Well, now that I've seen where the fuel comes from, I better go check out this plant. Robin, thanks so much for the invitation.
Glad to have you here. Here we are at Corix biomass plant. We're up on Burnaby Mountain at Simon Fraser University. We burn biomass here and make energy to supply to the university and then also to the residential community up here on Burnaby Mountain. We bring in biomass locally sourced from a local provider here that's post-consumer waste, wood chips, leftover building materials, that kind of stuff. That's all brought here. Our supplier chips it up, puts it to our specifications and brings it here that we can then use it and burn it in the boilers to make the heat.
So are you heating all the buildings on campus?
Yeah, so once the hot water is heated up, then that goes over to SFU, to their boiler house, and there they distribute it out to the university buildings. And then we also have another system that runs up to all the residential towers up on the hill. For 2023, we supplied over 85% of the heat needs requirements of SFU. We've also been working with the SFU's operation and engineering department, and we've actually increased that up to almost 95% of the heat.
So that must lead to a pretty substantial greenhouse gas reduction.
And it's helping them to reach their ultimate goals of their decarbonization.
With biomass plants, there tends to be a lot of concerns about the flue gas and the emissions. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
We have a dedicated SEMS continuous emission monitoring system that's monitoring our emissions of our stack. 98% of all the particulates are scrubbed out of the system, and there's really no smell or emissions coming out the stack. Metro Vancouver has some of the most stringent air emission quality standards in North America, which we meet or exceed.
And was there a lot of disruption on campus when this was installed?
No, actually we were able to seamlessly integrate it into their distribution system. And that's one thing that Corix does. We look not only for new projects, but we also look for retrofitting existing district energy systems. Corix will come in, design, build, finance, own and operate these plants.
So the university itself didn't have to incur a whole bunch of costs to decarbonize it?
No, it was Corix that came in, put the solution in, and then with the working relationship, we'll get our payback over the lifetime of the plant.
Hello, you must be Bernard.
Hi, Jamie. Welcome. Welcome to SFU.
So how did Simon Fraser University choose biomass?
First of all, it is a carbon neutral fuel, and it helps meet our carbon reduction and decarbonization target. And also, not to mention, we are able to source the wood fuel locally so that we greatly reduce our carbon footprint. And also, more importantly, the biomass just blend well with our existing district energy system. We don't have to invest a lot of capital funding into other infrastructure upgrades, so it provides competitive pricing advantage here. And during the winter time, we'll be having the biomass plant to supply our heat to a base load, and then when it's needed, we will be turn on our natural gas boilers for the peak load.
Okay, and so that's just an economical way to ensure that you're meeting that for the very cold days.
That's correct. So this is the pipe, this is the energy that we are getting from Cororax. So Cororax will produce the energy through the biomass, and then the heat will come into a heat exchanger. And then from the heat exchanger, we will extract the heat from Cororax, and then we will distribute that heat throughout the campus through our existing district energy network.
So Corix uses the biomass to make hot water, and it comes in here, but that hot water doesn't actually go to your campus.
No, we actually don't need the water. All we need is the heat from the water.
So that meant that you didn't need to make any changes on the rest of the network.
That's essentially right. Yeah, we don't have to make any changes. All we are doing here is to tap it into our existing district energy network. SFU, we have a very ambitious climate action goal, and this project definitely contributes to a big step towards our decarbonization objectives here.
Well, I'm so glad to be able to learn about a real Canadian bioenergy success story. Although the Corix biomass plant is quite a bit smaller than some of the facilities we visit in Europe, it's a great example of how a university can take a pragmatic approach to decarbonization and, with a single project, significantly reduce its greenhouse gas emissions. As I also learned from Robbie Gill at Cloverdale, the biomass plant plays a critical role in British Columbia's legendary forest sector. Well, after a long day It's time I enjoyed one of Canada's other legends. Catch you next time.